Let's get it started. Charles Barkley, who never disappoints, he's at it again. He loves talking about Kevin Durant, doesn't he? And it's usually not good when he talks about Kevin Durant, and that was the case again. Where did he say this, Rob G?
He said this on the radio in Phoenix. I think he lives in Phoenix, right? So he said on local station 98.7 in Phoenix.
All right, yeah, because Phoenix obviously was a team that, Durant wanted to go to. So here's Charles Barkley on Kevin Durant.
All the old guys, he get mad when we say it. He piggyback on the Warriors to win his first two championships. But if you go back and look at his career, as the best player and being a leader that all goes with that, he's been an abject failure. Every time he's been like the guy who has to be the leader and the best player, he has not had success.
It's true.
And that's what us old guys think about him.
Listen to the host. It's true. It's true. It's not true. All right, now look, I've been critical of Kevin Durant. I don't know if I can say as critical as anybody because going way back, I didn't criticize him for going to Golden State. I didn't rip him for that. I said, and the reason I didn't rip him was because I said, look, all these people killing him a year from now after he's won a championship. Well, I actually said 2 years from now. In 2 years, when he has 2 championships and at least 1 finals MVP, he ended up with 2. All these same people would be praising him. And they were. And I thought that was hypocritical. Because you knew it wasn't like when he went there, you were like, oh, are they going to win it? We knew. All right. So nothing changed. So that's why I didn't kill him. But Rob G, what I see, and we'll get to the meat of Barkley's comment, because I think Charles goes way too far.
Absolutely.
Abject failure? Okay. As the main guy, he has not led a team to a championship. And I've been one of the loudest saying, I want to see if he can do it. I'm saying now, don't talk to me about top 10 unless he shows he can do it. So I'm with all that. But to call his years in Oklahoma City an abject failure is abject lunacy. All right. Kevin Durant led Oklahoma City to great heights. In fact, he led them as far as Charles Barkley led a team, which was to the finals. What, in his 3rd year, something like that? Led him to the finals. Young pup. And Westbrook and Harden were young pups as well, and they went to the finals. And then, even though he didn't get back, he won an MVP, and he had that team in consistent contention. That team beat Tim Duncan and the vaunted Spurs. Like, they were legit. They had the 73-win Warriors down.
Spurs team.
Right. And they had the Warriors down 3-1. So I can't go abject failure. I'll go. He has yet to prove he can lead a team to a title. Fine. Karl Malone didn't prove it. John Stockton didn't prove it. Charles Barkley didn't prove it. Allen Iverson didn't prove it. None of us would call any of them abject failure. So I think Barkley went too far, but Rob G, quickly, and then it's yours. To me, this is emblematic of what has now happened to Kevin Durant. It is now gone to the full extreme in the opposite direction. Now, people are going overboard in their criticism. So Barkley says he's an abject failure against all facts and evidence. And then remember it was earlier this week in a USA Today story, an anonymous executive in the league said, I'm paraphrasing this part, why would you trade for Kevin Durant? This part's a direct quote. When you know he's gonna burn your house down. Really? Can we cut the hyperbole? Burn your... What house is he burnt down? He helped Golden State win championships. And when he left, the house wasn't burnt.
Yeah,
right. They won again.
One. They reloaded.
And, OKC, of course, if a player of that caliber leaves, they're going to struggle. But they still had Russ. They ended up getting Paul George. They made the playoffs. And now if you want to say, well, he made the Nets give up all they had to get Harden, they still are in great shape.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, this is emblematic, Rob G, of how people have gone too far the opposite way now with Kevin Durant.
1,000%. It seems like he's become America's favorite punching bag. And it's unfair to me. And I like you. I didn't agree with his decision to, request a trade out of Brooklyn. I thought that there was no good reason. And according to multiple reports, even the Nets didn't know what the reason was. Right. They're like, hey, we still don't know why he wants out. We've done everything he's asked for. But Charles Barkley specifically, and Shaq maybe to a lesser extent, it feels like it's personal to them. Like they have something personal that they don't like about Kevin Durant. Maybe it's because both of them are Hall of Famers. Shaq easily a top 10 player of all time. Chuck right there on the outskirts, on the periphery. That they compare him to LeBron, to Michael Jordan, to Tim Duncan. And so Kevin Durant, talent-wise, can match up with those guys. But he's shown, and you agree with this, Chris, that the intangibles part, that's just not him. That's not where he's at. That's not his psyche.
That's a big
sure.
Deficit. Yeah.
Sure. But because he doesn't line up with those guys, he's the worst. And that's just not fair. To your point, Charles Barkley didn't win a championship.
Right. Chris
Paul is lauded as one of the great leaders of this generation. And he made the finals once and blew a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, right.
And
was horrible last year.
He was horrible. And I think they lost by like 50 points, something like that.
Yeah.
And so where Kevin Durant the narrative has shifted, like you said. He was the guy. He finally got help. Now we see what happens when he has a team around him that fits, unlike Russell Westbrook in OKC, and he's the best player in the world now. And even now, after he left Golden State, he came back from injury, and, well, if he's not number one, he's probably number two behind Giannis. But because of the way this past season went in Brooklyn with Kyrie and the Ben Simmons, the James Harden, the trade demand, everything, all the good equity he's built up, it seems to have gone out the window.
And look, I love Barkley. And I love Barkley making the comments he makes, whether I agree with him or not. Charles Barkley was not only a phenomenal basketball player, but he's a phenomenal broadcaster. We all know that. We all would agree on both of those parts. But we've talked about Kevin Durant not having the intangibles. A lot of people would say I think Michael Jordan would say Barkley didn't have the intangibles.
Yeah.
Scottie Pippen said it literally. He didn't have the intangibles. All right. Barkley, and I guess you'll always rank Durant ahead of Barkley because he got those 2 rings, even if it was in a relatively easy situation. I'm just going to keep it real.
Right.
Barkley he was in good situations too and didn't make the most of it. His rookie year, now granted, he was a rookie, but he went to the 76ers who had won a title just recently, and they had Dr. J and Moses Malone, and they went out in the Eastern Conference Finals. The next year, they went out in the second round. Then it became his team, and they fell apart. I mean, they weren't very good. Then he goes to Phoenix, does lead him to the finals, and it was a strong performance in those finals against Michael Jordan, but they didn't get it done. And then he left there. And he goes to Houston. Now, they were a little older, but he was still, all of them, in fact, Drexler, Olajuwon, and Barkley were putting up huge numbers the year before they teamed up in Houston.
Right.
So they still had a lot left. And they didn't get it done. They didn't even reach the finals in a few years. And Drexler was replaced by Pippen. Still didn't reach the finals. So Charles is criticizing Durant in a lot of the similar ways he could be criticized as well.
Right. And Kevin Durant has said this himself. It seems like ever since he went to Golden State, people just forgot about everything he did in Oklahoma City. And you brought this up earlier. Do I think he has some question marks as a leader? Of course. Do I think he's missing a lot of intangibles? Of course. He's got to have something to lead a team that young to the finals, to your point.
Right.
He's got to have something to go toe-to-toe with LeBron and the Heatles at that time, fresh off of what was an embarrassing finals loss to the Mavs the year before, so you know that they were on a mission.
Right.
And even though it was a 5-game series, I never thought that they got blown out in that finals. They just lost each of those games. And in the deciding game, I believe it was Mike Miller who went, nuclear that nobody saw coming, and that's what ended up being the nail in the coffin. But Kevin Durant has done a lot of good things in his career, and I don't think I would ever use the word abject failure with him in any regard.
Right.
In his career at all.
I wouldn't use it with Russell Westbrook.
Nope.
If somebody wanted to say last year was an abject failure, I probably would even take issue with that. I get it. He wasn't good.
Yeah, he was bad.
But I'd still say he wasn't good, and it was a 18-7 and 7.
You know how many guys
good.
would kill to give 18-7 and 7?
Right.
And Russ was bad last year, yes. But no, he's not an abject failure.
So this is just, Rob G, an example, and we all play into it. And look, championship, it's about championships.
Right.
But this is kind of taking the championships or nothing ethos to the extreme. Saying because he didn't win a championship in Oklahoma City, he was an abject failure. It's just, Michael Jordan wasn't an abject failure for the first 6 years of his career.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that is ridiculous. So, yeah, Barkley went a little too far in that regard, but he was right, Rob G, in one other way. All right, Rob G, we were talking about Charles Barkley's comments, and there's a second part. He went on and on and on. Do we have the second part? Can we hear that? Here we go.
He just seems like a miserable person, man. I call him Mr. Miserable. He's never going to be happy. I mean, everybody's giving him everything on a silver platter. He was a man in Oklahoma City. They loved him. He owned the entire state. And then he bolts on them and goes to the Warriors. He wins back-to-back championships, and he's still not happy. Then he goes to Brooklyn. They give him everything he wants, and he's still miserable.
Rob G, you can tackle this first.
For as wrong as Chuck was in the first clip, he's dead on the second one. I mean, it's not unusual for people to just be unhappy, no matter what their situation is. They always say money can't buy you happiness, and I'm always like, yeah, you say that because you got money. But it is true. There are people who are financially well off that are still miserable. Kevin Durant, as far as a basketball perspective, has had basically everything you could ever ask for. He got drafted to a team that was a small market. They built around him very well with talent, with Ibaka at Harden, Westbrook. He got his MVP. He made the finals early, even though they flamed out in OKC. Goes to Golden State. They play a brand of basketball that he says he loves. He wins a couple of championships. He doesn't have to worry about being the leader. He can just ball, which he did. Decided he wasn't happy there. Goes to Brooklyn. Has carte blanche over there. He's running the show, roster-wise, coach-wise, everything. Decides he wants to trade, and still nobody knows exactly why he wanted to trade. And it's because, as Charles said, there's something in his brain, and that's probably why he's so back and forth on Twitter, that he's just not content and happy with where he's at. So I think that's fair.
Well, look, some people will quibble over the definition of miserable. Is he miserable? Is he just unhappy? Is he just sad? Is he, you can fight, you can quibble over the definition. Miserable, man, that's going too far. He's not miserable. Okay, maybe that's true. But the things Kevin Durant has done over the last several years, since he left Oklahoma City, they open you up to this type of criticism.
Right.
Whether it is people going a little bit overboard or not, there is enough evidence. There are enough reasons that we've all seen, and you laid some of them out, for someone to say Kevin Durant just doesn't seem happy. And you just, what's the difference between he doesn't seem happy and he's miserable? Okay. And so you said, look, I leaving Oklahoma City, we talk about it all the time on this show, Rob and I, we understand NBA players may not want to play in Utah.
Right.
So if he didn't want to be in Oklahoma City, no problem there. But that's when this began. You go to Golden State. You go there because you love the way they play basketball, moving the ball. And you said it. You win 2 titles. You're the 2-time finals MVP. And what'd he say after his first championship, Rob G? That was it?
Yeah.
I thought it'd be more than
Right. Right.
What were you expecting? Fireworks to go off in your head? I mean, what would really? And then there's more to it. Remember when they almost lost the next year to Houston? They almost lost that series because KD was really wanted to play more ISO basketball.
Right.
Right? And he was getting away from the ball movement and passing the ball, player movement, all that stuff. Why? You had just run to the championship. You were the finals MVP. You were playing great, having a great season. Why are you so insistent now? It's just, something in him told him, go against the grain. I'm not happy playing this way. You weren't happy playing the ISO ball in OKC. Now you're not happy playing the team ball in Golden State. And then you leave there, and as you said, they gave him everything. And that was the most disappointing thing to me. When he demanded his trade, I felt two things. One, you're running from a challenge. You're running from a challenge. And two, you haven't even given yourself a chance yet. You played 44 games with Kyrie.
Right.
And so there are those that'll tell you KD is moody. He's just a moody type of guy. And my point is just that there is fodder for people to look at Kevin Durant and say, man, he's miserable. And Kyrie has said himself, a lot of players in the NBA aren't happy. And Kyrie just happens to be his best friend.
Yeah.
Or, one of his best friends.
And Jason McIntyre said this on the Straight Fire pod, which I know you never miss. Right?
Never miss.
But
never miss.
he spoke to someone, I believe it was in like the agent world, but someone who kind of knows KD a little bit. And he was asking about what's going on. This was before the trade demand was rescinded. And he said, is it that guys just don't like KD? And that's why the market's that soft is the way it is, because there's no players like pounding the table saying, we got to get KD, we got to get KD.
Right.
And the person who J-Mac was talking to was saying, no, players love Kevin Durant, but KD doesn't love himself.
Wow.
And I was like, I mean, that was kind of profound. I don't know if I would have went that far, but it just goes to tell you.
That's even further than Barkley.
Exactly. That just goes to tell you, though, that this is not just an outward appearance kind of thing that people in the media who don't really know Kevin Durant are saying. This is people who are, quote unquote, in the know that even agree to this extent.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, man. Kevin Durant has everything, all the money in the world, all the fame in the world. Even for even this bit of criticism he gets, he's viewed as one of the greatest players ever. He should really be enjoying himself. And you just hope you know what I hope? I hope he's not miserable, like Barkley said.
Right.
But when you're giving off those vibes for several years, that's what people are going to say.